On February 6th, boxing's rich Mexican tapestry will gain another vibrant thread when Christian Medina, the ring's #2 rated bantamweight and reigning WBO bantamweight world champion, returns home to defend his title against fellow Mexican Adrian Curiel. The bout, first teased for January 31st before being shifted back a week due to an overloaded global boxing calendar, will headline an ESPN knockout broadcast from Jalisco, placing Medina squarely in the spotlight as he begins the most critical phase of his career. This is more than a title defense. It is a homecoming, it is a promotional debut, and it is a crossroads fight for both men. Christian Chispa Medina, from obscurity to the bantamweight throne. In boxing, championships are not simply won, they are taken. Taken from hostile arenas, taken from unbeaten favorites, taken from the assumptions that geography, money, or momentum dictate destiny. On a humid September night in Nagoya, Japan, Christian Medina took his. 4 rounds, 1 punch, a stunned silence inside a building that had expected a coronation, just not for him. When Medina detonated a short right hand that folded Yoshiki-Taki, it did more than end a fight. It rewrote a career narrative that had long hovered between promise and doubt. The WBO bantamweight title, once theoretical, suddenly rested around his waist. Mexico had another world champion, but to understand why that moment mattered, why February 6th in Jalisco is not just a title defense, but a referendum on legitimacy, you have to understand where Medina came from, what nearly broke him, and how close he came to being forgotten. The weight of expectation in Mexican boxing. Mexico does not produce boxers. It produces fighters. From gymnasiums that smell of bleach and sweat, from rings patched together with duct tape and pride, Mexican fighters are born into a culture where durability is assumed and finesse is often dismissed. To be Mexican in box is to inherit expectation without protection. For Medina, that inheritance was heavy. Unlike the hyped prodigies, the Canelos, the Estradas, Medina's early career unfolded largely in the shadows. He was good, clearly good, but not spectacular enough to attract early international investment. Chispa, the spark before the flame. The nickname Chispa, spark, followed Medina long before the fire arrived. It came from his early knockouts, flashes of violence that hinted at something deeper. But flashes alone don't make careers. Boxing history is littered with fighters who sparkled briefly and disappeared. Medina's early record reflected that tension. By the time he had reached his early 20s, he had already tasted defeat. Not once, but multiple times. His record, now 26-4, 19 KOs, does not tell a story of dominance. It tells a story of survival. Each loss carved a question mark. Is he elite? Is he tough enough? Is he world class? Or just another domestic gatekeeper? Those questions followed him across borders. Japan, the long road through enemy territory. Japanese boxing is clinical, precise, and deeply nationalistic. Foreign fighters are welcomed and favored. When Medina traveled to Osaka in August 2023 to face Ryosuke Nishida, he was stepping into a system designed to test patience more than power. 12 rounds later, he walked out with a unanimous decision loss. It was not a robbery. It was not a blowout. It was worse. It was educational. Nishida outmaneuvered him, out-timed him, forced Medina to chase moments instead of control them. For the judges, it was clear. For Medina, it was devastating. This was not just a loss. It was a title eliminator. For many fighters, that's the moment careers stall. The rebuild. After the title loss to Nishida, Medina took 4 rebuilding fights against limited opposition, such as Victor Trejo and Alexis Molina Aguirre. While the level of competition was not strong, these were stay-busy bouts that served their purpose. Medina won all 4 by stoppage, showing sharpness, confidence, and physical readiness, and positioning himself well for another title shot. On paper, it meant nothing. In reality, it meant everything. It was his first fight back in front of Mexican fans after Japan. The pressure was different. Not hostile, expectant. He passed the test, quietly, Nagoya. When preparation meets opportunity. When Medina accepted the fight with Yoshiki-Taki, there was no illusion about the odds. Unbeaten Japanese champion, home advantage promotional momentum, but Medina had already lost in Japan once. The fear was gone. What replaced it was clarity. He did not rush, he did not brawl. He allowed Takei to commit and punished him for it. The knockout was brutal, yes, but it was also inevitable. When Takei fell, Medina did not celebrate wildly. He stood still, absorbing the moment. Years of doubt evaporated in seconds. A champion in a complicated moment, Medina's victory carried symbolic weight beyond his own career. It came just hours after Canelo Alvarez lost his undisputed crown to Terence Crawford, a seismic shift in Mexican boxing identity. While Mexico processed the end of one era, another quietly began. Medina became the country's sixth reigning world champion. Not a megastar, not yet, but something arguably more important. Proof that Mexican boxing continues to regenerate. Matchroom enters the picture. The announcement that Medina had signed with Matchroom Boxing sent a ripple through the lower weight divisions. For Matchroom, Medina represents something rare. A Mexican champion in the bantamweight division with knockout power, international credibility, and crossover appeal. For Medina, the signing means global visibility, regular championship opportunities, potential unification bouts. It also inevitably raises questions about future clashes with fighters like Jesse Rodriguez, The Ring, and unified junior bantamweight champion, whose promotional future remains fluid. Medina's first bout under the Matchroom banner, however, is not about speculation. It is about Adrian Curiel. Adrian Curiel, collapse, reinvention, and the courage to climb again. If Christian Medina's story is one of delayed arrival, Adrian Curiel's is a warning about how quickly boxing can giveth and take away. Curiel did not wait for recognition. He seized it violently, suddenly, and without apology. And just as quickly, he lost it. The difference between Curiel and the dozens of former champions history has forgotten is not that he fell. It's that he stood back up, changed weight classes, rebuilt his confidence, and dared to knock on a far heavier door. That door now belongs to Christian Medina, the night everything changed. Monte Carlo, 2023. Few title wins in recent memory were as shocking as Adrian Curiel versus Sivanathi Nonshinga. In Monte Carlo, surrounded by glamour, betting odds, and assumptions, Curiel was not supposed to win, let alone dominate. Nonshinga was seen as a rising force, technically polished and ready for a long reign. 2 rounds later, Curiel had stopped him cold. The IBF junior flyweight title changed hands in brutal fashion, and the boxing world scrambled to update its narratives. Overnight, Curiel became a world champion, a dangerous puncher, a problem no one had properly prepared for Curiel. It was validation after years of quiet grind. But boxing despises comfort. The champion's curse, the immediate rematches, are where truth lives. When Curiel agreed to face Sivanathi Nonshinga again, the context had shifted dramatically. Nonshinga now had film, strategy, urgency. Curiel, meanwhile, had something new, the pressure of being champion. The rematch was pure back-and-forth drama. Adrian Curiel came forward with non-stop pressure, firing sharp combinations and forcing the action. Sivanathi Nonshinga answered with composure, timing, and clean counters, refusing to be overwhelmed. Momentum shifted round by round, Curiel surging, Nonshinga responding, until it became a battle of heart as much as skill. A true great rematch, defined by grit, adjustments, and relentless exchanges. In the end, Nonshinga broke Curiel down and stopped him in the 10th round, reclaiming the title and leaving Curiel battered, emptied, and suddenly exposed. The belt was gone, the mystique cracked. The decision to move up to 112 pounds, from champion to question mark losses after title reigns, are different. They don't just remove hardware, they remove certainty. Curiel's next outing compounded the crisis. Against Sonny Edwards, one of the most technically gifted flyweights in the world, Curiel found himself chasing shadows. Edwards boxed, moved, neutralized. Curiel pressed, missed, frustrated. 2 losses, back-to-back, from champion to outsider in less than a year. At 108 pounds, Curiel had hit his ceiling. He won 2 straight fights, both 10-round decisions, including one at 115 pounds, the heaviest of his career. Curiel has never competed at 118 pounds, so I genuinely don't understand how he ended up with a title shot there. He hasn't proven himself anywhere near that weight, and jumping straight into a fight against a puncher like Medina at 118 could go very wrong. Why bantamweight is a gamble, and an opportunity moving from flyweight to bantamweight is not a step, it's a leap. Punchers hit harder, margins shrink, mistakes punish instantly. For Curiel, this is his first time in the division. Against most champions, that would be reckless. Against Medina, it is strategic. Medina is powerful, yes, but he is not reckless. He sets traps. He waits. Mexico versus Mexico. A different kind of pressure. Mexican on Mexican world title fights are emotionally violent. There is no villain. There is no foreign enemy. There is only pride and judgment. For Curiel, fighting in Guadalajara means he will not be booed, but he will not be protected either. Every moment of hesitation will be noticed, every success questioned. For Medina, the burden is heavier. He is the champion. He is at home. He is expected to dominate. Curiel enters as the man with nothing to lose, and that makes him dangerous. Legacy at stake. For Curiel, this fight represents a second world title attempt, a chance at redemption, proof that his championship moment was not accidental. For Medina, it is simpler and harsher. Defend or be doubted forever. The bantamweight landscape. Bantamweight has entered a transitional phase. There is no singular dominant force. There is no consensus pound-for-pound king. That vacuum rewards champions who defend consistently, travel willingly, win decisively. Medina has already checked one of those boxes by winning in Japan. Now he must check the next. What February 6th really decides this fight does not decide who is tougher. It decides who is next. Next in line for unifications. Next in line for international cards. Next in line to carry Mexican boxing forward while icons age out. When the bell rings in Jalisco, the crowd will roar. Not for spectacle, but for clarity. For Christian Medina, the exposure is absolute. Champion, homecoming, headliner. The man expected not only to win, but to convince. For Adrian Curiel, it is liberating. The burden of proof lies elsewhere. Every round survived is an accusation against certainty. What happens to the fighter who wins? If Medina wins, Matchroom accelerates plans. International defenses come into focus. Voluntary challengers line up. Conversations about unification stop being theoretical. A champion who defends at home becomes anchored. If Curiel wins, the story explodes. Two-division world champion. Former title holder resurrected. For Curiel, career redemption is complete. His losses become chapters, not conclusions. He re-enters elite matchmaking immediately. Final verdict. Christian Medina did not become champion by accident. Adrian Curiel did not return to relevance by coincidence. On February 6th in Jalisco, one of these truths becomes stronger, and the other becomes history. The crowd will roar, the gloves will rise, and Mexican boxing will turn the page once more.